Hello, welcome in Be Awesome podcast. This podcast is product of promoting teachers' professional development and inclusion through the integration of emerging technologies in the teaching of children with autism. Today we're going to talk about teaching methodologies for contextual and temporal setup a classroom for children with autism spectrum disorder. Today we have with us, to develop the topic, our guest, Katarzyna Pabich.
Hello.
Hello, Kasia. Can you tell something about you, about your background?
Yeah, sure. For the last 10 years, I've been working with children with autism, and this is like my main topic of my interests. Now I work at school. The school is it is built only for children with special education needs, mainly with autism. I also work in the kindergarten when we have children with spectrum, and run my own cabinet, my own place when I run a therapy for children with autism.
Yeah, super. So you're the perfect guest for our topic. Okay, so let's start with our first question. How teachers can incorporate sensory-friendly environment in the classroom to help each kids?
Okay, so organizing the classroom for children with autism is, in my opinion, the first thing we have to do before even starting the job, before even starting the work, before even starting the teaching process. Taking care of emotion and sensory feelings for those children is the main goal for the, first 1-2 months of the education. First of all, we can take care of the environment. So we can, use the not so vivid colors in the classroom, take off the posters, things that can disturb them, because we know that with visual effects and visual distractors, it can provide problems for the teaching process for the children. The focus on learning, teaching might be disturbed by those pictures, toys, everything that can took the attention of the child. Beside that, we have to consider the hearing situation. So with some children, it might be important and useful to have this noise cancelling headphones for some time, especially during the breaks. The breaks can be really overstimulating for children with autism because many children run, scream. It's just the moment when the other children, not with autism, let's say neurotypical, might be really loud, and it can be really overwhelming. And knowing that this break can actually not be a break for our children with autism, but it can be something so overstimulating, is also something that we have to take to consideration when we start the class. So sometimes it is really important to give a child the time to calm down, to have, massage, or any kind of help to cool down the neurotypical system. What's else important is sometimes, in my school, I think that teachers sometimes forget that the sensory feelings, it's not only sight, hearing, but it's also a tactical sensory. So when we want the child to, write down the letters, in primary school especially, it is really common to write the letters in a row, or the numbers. We are taking focus on writing skills and reading skills. And we have to remember that the tactile with children with
Mhm.
autism might be super
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
They can feel like I don't know, sometimes they can feel their hands like they were in the gloves,
Yeah. Mm.
or I don't know, like they can actually not feel the hands.
Yeah.
So we have to take care of this side of sensorical issues. So in my opinion, knowing the child, knowing the difficulties that the child is struggling with, sensory difficulties is the most important thing. And knowing that, we can build the environment that can be really useful and helpful with the education system, with the education process.
Yeah. It's very important, and especially that you have like everyday experience in this kind of environment. So
Yes,
you can
yes,
see.
yeah. Like in some situations, it is good that child is sitting in front of the class, because the distraction of the other children, like acts, I don't know, falling pencils, talking children, I don't know, during the class, can be distracting. And being in front of the teacher might be really useful. Also, connecting to these visual things, we can give the child a different type of materials. The same topic, but a different material, like bigger, or with the visual effects, and it can also help the process of the teaching.
Yeah. Amazing.
And in another situation is also the teacher's behavior. We can have children that are really reactive to high voice, and they will be more focused on the topic or on the teacher if the teacher will be really loud and alive and so on. And for other children it can be disturbing, and it can be even hurting their ears and hurting their, I don't know, eyes, anything, the body. So we have to remember about that also. Like the way we communicate with the class is also important when it comes to children with autism.
And like smoothly we came to another question about how we can tailor the strategies for individuals with autism. Like we have so many kids with so many different needs. So how it's possible to create strategies for each of them when we have classroom?
Yeah, so this is the really difficult task for teachers, especially when you teach the group with, like, say, neurotypical and non-neurotypical children. We have to remember that our child is a part of the community, of course, and the first thing that we can do is observing the child. Contacting with the specialists that are working with the child, connecting to parents and talking with them before starting the class, trying to get to know the child before the school starts, and before we build the strategy for the child. Sometimes it is needed that there is another teacher in the classroom that is a special addition for the class to help those children with following the topic, following the lesson. But what is the most important is knowing the child, and then trying to build and find the methodologies for this one child. Of course, it can be different with any child. They are so like the variety of symptoms, the variety of the variety of symptoms, and how strong they are vivid and outside is really important to notice, and then try to tailor the methodologies for this topic. For the teaching methods. For example, we can use, as I said before, we can use some vivid materials, like I don't know, pictures, or bigger letters when it comes to reading. What I find really useful is trying to, and it's not only for the child with autism, but also for the whole class, it is really good to build the schedule of the day and the schedule of the week, because it gives the child the sense of time, and it gives the child the safety that that the child knows what will happen. Yeah. So in my opinion, this is the first step. Like the first step is knowing, then building the schedule, and giving this repetitive timeline of every day. Taking care of the emotions of the child and noticing the emotions of the child, because sometimes our neuronal system is down, and we try to teach in this moment, and it's really pointless. Like taking care of self-regulation of the child, I don't know, giving them massage, giving their time to process the break, as I said, might be really useful and might be really important for the child. In my school, we also have those special rooms. We call it silent room, when the child can go and take rest if it's needed. And in those rooms, there is also always a teacher trying to help to regulate the neuronal system for the child. Yes, so I think those rooms, or even the space in the classroom that can be separated and can give the child a specific moment, a specific feeling that it needs, can be really useful. As I said, sitting in front of the teacher can be really helpful as well. Sometimes we want to we seat the children with autism in the end of the classroom because there is another teacher for them, and it is easier to organize everything. But in my opinion, sitting in front of the teacher is better, because it helps to focus on the topic. And trying different methods is also useful. Like, I don't know, applications, games, like what works for other children cannot work for our child. In my school, even though it's a school only for children with special needs, and we have, I don't know, 4, maximum 7 people in classroom, 7 children in one classroom, we always try to build the strategies for each child and focus on building the best environment. And building the best environment can build the best education system for the child.
It would be good if this would be like practice in every school. And as you mentioned about that, for the like, first of all, you need to know kid, like what kind of therapy he have out of school, what kind of symptoms at home, etc., etc. So now my question is about communication with families, other specialists out of school. How school can support this communication process with other people?
So I think like this is the really crucial thing to do. Connect with specialists that are working with children, that were working or are working with child. Of course, the child usually has the documentation, and it comes to school with this whole full package of the papers. So of course, getting to know the papers and what is in the papers is really important. But organizing those meetings, taking care to build the contacts with other specialists, parents, it's really crucial.
You mean organizing meetings with other professionals?
Yes. Okay. So usually when it comes to children with autism, we have school. In school, we have some, like, school sometimes provides some kind of therapy at school, and usually children with autism goes to classes outside of the school because families want to improve their functioning as much as they can. So I know it might sound like a really hard work to do, but when you organize it the good way, it's really useful. First of all, it's really crucial to, I don't know, call the specialist, ask the parents if the specialist is okay with contacting them, and contacting the specialist outside of the school can be the first step. After that, we have the teacher and the specialist working at school. So trying to be in contact to talk about the child is also really important.
Yeah.
And the third part of this group is, of course, the parents,
Yeah.
family, not only family, but parents, the guardians of the child. So, in my opinion, trying to build a connection, the teacher can build the free connections. Yes, like with specialists outside from the school, with the specialists in the school, and with the parents.
Yeah.
And of course, we can do it like on three ways and three separated ways. But in our school, for example, we are trying to have those meetings about the child twice a year, and we are inviting for those meetings all the specialists from the school. We are inviting the parents, and if we are in touch with specialists outside from the school, we are trying to invite them as well. Building the same system and the same goals to work on is really crucial, and strategies as well. Because okay, if I'm gonna work on, I don't know, eye contact with the child, and one of the specialists is trying to do it by forcing the eye contact, like look at me, look at me, look at me. And the other specialist is trying to work on eye contact in a different way, by playing and not forcing, because it's he or she sees that it doesn't work for a child. It's really crucial to inform other specialists to build the best strategy, to find the best strategy, because sometimes we are working on the same goal with different strategies, and we don't see the progress because maybe we are using not the good strategies. And trying to connect with other specialists, doing this brainstorm around the topic can be really helpful, and checking the progress is also crucial. Okay, so we tried this and we tried this, it wasn't working, so let's maybe try this. Oh, that sounds nice. And then we're working on this for, I don't know, 1 month, 2 months, and after 2 months we're connecting together and trying to think if, okay, was it working? Yeah, so we can do another thing.
It sounds much more effective way of learning.
Yes, and of course the relation teacher-parent is also really important.
Yes.
Usually I say to my teachers, because I work as a psychologist at school, so I'm taking care of the teacher, parents, children, like all of the groups are in contact with me. Yeah. So I usually try to convince the teacher or even explain them that the parents are crucial, and the trust between parents and the teacher is something that is really important, because if there is no communication or no trust, then the child can feel it, and if the child can feel it, the child will not make a progress. The child have to feel the safety in every environment, and that in all of those environments there is the connection and also like this safety feeling.
And it can influence every other. Super. And as you were talking before about different tools in the classroom that can be used, and you mentioned technologies, because technologies is playing an increasing role in the education. Is it really helpful? How it can be helpful in the classroom? Maybe you know some examples of this kind of supportive tools.
So, in my opinion, it's a really controversial topic, because we know that children with autism can fall into the technology, like they can fall in the universe that is created in YouTube, games, and so on and so on and so on. But in my opinion, when we have it under control and when we use the technology as a tool, it's a really marvelous thing. First of all, we can talk about the children that are nonverbal, and they need something that can give them the communication. With some children, communicating by, I don't know, PECS pictures
Yeah.
or this
Communication.
communication on the bill pictures is not working.
Yeah.
And working on the tablet, for example, is really easier,
Yeah.
much easier, because the computer or the tablet can give you also the sound of the
Yeah,
things
it's
that
more
you're
attractive.
clicking. It's more attractive, and it also gives you the sound, like the sound that you can copy
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
everything. Yeah. So there are different applications. One of them is like Prolog to Go. In Poland we have Movik. So, so there are different applications for every country. But this part is the really crucial one. Of course, on the tablet, that is like that we use for the contact with the child, that is used to communicate, should not be any other application, games, and so on and so on. But I think that the speech therapists or I don't know, psychologists that are trying to build the system on the tablet, it is like it is obvious, and they are informing the parents and the other teachers, of course. Technology is also really attractive.
Yes, especially for kids.
For kids as well, but also for the teachers. Like me, I did for 3 years. I have been the VR therapist, and I'm working with VR. So virtual reality gives us like many possibilities to work with the children. It is really attractive for the child. It can, I don't want to say light up the classes, but it can give another energy to the classes. And it is so attractive and motivating that the child can really work on some of their behaviors or abilities as well. Virtual reality is giving us the possibility to build the environment that we cannot build like in the classroom. Physically in the classroom. For example, 3 years ago, I had I worked with a boy with autism, and he was really afraid of the dogs. And we wanted to work on that because it was really dangerous for his life sometimes, because when he saw a dog on the street, he could run away and without looking, checking the street and so on. So it was really dangerous. And talking to his mom, we decided to use the VR to like build this, maybe not friendship between him and dogs, but lower the level of the fear. And there was one application, Bogo, that we used, and then after that we used another application, and he was connected to this small dinosaur that acts like dog. And then after that we put some movies with dogs on the VR. And after 3 months, like his behavior really changed, and he was ready to cope with dogs on the street. So, but this is from my perspective, and this is something that I'm interested to, so that's why I can talk about it really, really long. Of course, we have other applications like WordWall, I don't know, ABC Mouse. Here we have also Pisu Pisu. Like I think in every country there is a different platform in web that we can use, and that might be really useful to give the child more attractive way to learn, in my opinion. And what else? I think it's all. That's important, and that can give you
some look of the possibilities.
Yes. But of course, it's important to take care of the time that we are spending in with technologies, and that the teacher or the educator or a therapist is taking control of it. It can also be really helpful to learn, I don't know, waiting skills, coping with the end of the game, emotions, and so on and so on and so on. But in my opinion, it's useful, but we have to take it on our responsibility, not the child.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Kasia. We heard a lot of information, very practical things, and hope you like it. You can follow us on our project social media. And that will be it for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.